It's just about 4:30. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on staying organized with OneNote. I made a bit of a joke yesterday that I should call this how to be less of a mess using OneNote, because I sometimes feel that I'm quite a disorganized person. OneNote does really help me stay organized, so I'm quite excited to show this to you today. A little bit of a change for us. We normally concentrate on Excel, but I thought OneNote's one of those apps which is really good but doesn't tend to get much love, and I think it's also one of those apps that people don't tend to know a great deal about. So that is why we've put this webinar on for you today. Now, I mentioned at the start to some of those people who were logged on right at the beginning near 4 o'clock that I am doing this from a different location today. I'm confident from the sound checks that you can all hear me okay. I hope we're not going to have any audio problems. I'm doing it from home, so I'm testing out my new super fast internet connection. So hopefully you can all hear me loud and clear. Now, before we jump into the content, let me just remind you of who I am. So my name's Deborah Ashby and I'm an IT trainer and subject matter expert. And I run webinars, I write course content, I do blogs, all that kind of stuff related to Microsoft training. And I've been a trainer for a very long time, so 22 years or so in the IT industry and about 10 years now in IT training. So hopefully that means I'm qualified to sit in front of you today. Now, I am aware that we've probably got lots of regulars on the call today, but maybe also some new people. So just to give you an idea of how I like to structure my courses, in general, we just have a few PowerPoint slides at the beginning, then we jump into a live demo. And before anyone starts asking me, because this is always the most popular question, this webinar is being recorded and we will make that available to you after the session. You'll normally receive it roughly 2 days after the webinar ends. All right, so you might be sitting there thinking, well, I don't know what OneNote is. In fact, I'm going to throw that question out to you. So if you can just type into the chat box, have you used OneNote before? Just let me know in the chat box. We've got quite a few yeses, yes. And someone's put, no, I have no idea. Wonderful, lots of yeses in here. And I think that's Mervy, it's scoring up quite quickly, says that she loves it. I do too, I think it's so useful. So hopefully you're going to get quite a lot out of this session today. Now, for those of you who aren't aware what OneNote is, I'll just give you a brief explanation. It's basically a digital note-taking application. And you might think, well, that sounds a little bit boring. Well, yeah, it does, I guess. But what it does, it really takes that whole kind of notebook experience and puts it online, puts it into an application that has loads of functionality, makes it super easy for you to stay organized. And I kind of describe it, it is similar to Word in many ways, in the fact that you can jump into it, it sort of looks like a document, you can start typing. So it is kind of similar to Word in that way, but it's not linear. So what I mean by that is with Word, you would open up a new document and you'd start typing your lines as you go down the page. OneNote has a slightly different setup. It has more of a scrapbook feel to it, which I'll show you when we jump into the application. One of the things I like about it is that it's suitable for personal and also for business use. So for example, for me, when I'm using OneNote, I use it for both. So I use it at work because I find it's really, really good for things like taking meeting notes or even just sort of organizing my training notes, things like that. But I also use it for personal use as well. So when I'm planning trips, I'm big into travel. I do a lot of traveling. When I'm planning a trip, I find that I gravitate towards towards OneNote in order to get all of my information organized in a cohesive fashion. So really lots of different uses for OneNote. And as I said, the main functionality of it is it helps you stay organized. Now, we are going to go into the application, but I just wanted to kind of put this up here. And this is from the Microsoft website, and it's just sort of their OneNote at a glance options. It gives you a real sort of high-level overview of some of the things that you can do with OneNote. So, for example, at its most basic level, it allows you to organize notes and thoughts, and you organize them much in the same way that you would if you had a paper notebook. So if you imagine you've got an old school style paper notebook, you have your notebook, and then you might have different sections within that notebook, or dividers, and then within those you might have pages which you write your notes on. And OneNote is set up in exactly that kind of structure, so it really does replicate that kind of manual notebook process. You can do lots of cool things with it though, because it is electronic. We have a lot more flexibility with what we can do. And one of the really good features is something called tagging, which you may or may not have used. And tagging allows you to highlight certain things in your notebook or tag them with a certain category. And it allows you to sort by those tags. So if you can tag different things and then essentially just pull out those tagged items. So again, if you're creating things like to-do lists, really, really good little feature, which I'll show you. There is lots of inking utilities. So again, you can draw your thoughts, and we're probably all used to using the draw tools in things like Word and PowerPoint. Personally, for me, I work on a laptop the majority of the time, so I don't tend to draw too much because I use a mouse, and anybody who's ever tried to draw anything accurately using a mouse knows that that's very difficult. But I will say the ink options really do come into their own. If you're somebody that uses a tablet device, OneNote works really, really well on a tablet device where you have a stylus. That is where your inking is really useful. You can add lots of different things into your notes. So not just text-based notes, you can add images, you can record audio notes, you can insert online videos, add files. There's a whole host of sort of multimedia that you can add into your notebook, which is also very, very useful. It has a clip and save feature. So there is something called the OneNote Web Clipper. And again, this is probably something that you've come across in other applications. So I think it's now screen clipping is available in all of the Microsoft applications. You have that same thing within OneNote. It does work in a slightly different way. And again, I will show you how that works. And of course, you have the ability to share your notebooks as well. So you can share notebooks with your co-workers, friends, family in a very easy way. So really, really good. So those are the main points, and we're going to cover all of those in the session today, as well as a few other little things here and there. Now, one thing that's important to point out before we get started is Microsoft always do this. I sometimes think they're trying to confuse people as much as possible. There are different versions of OneNote that are available. Now, if you attended, I think we did a webinar last week on the Office 365 portal where you can log into it and you can download your applications. You can also, from within there, access all of your applications in an online browser. So it's sort of a really nice, quick way of just being able to access Word, Excel, PowerPoint, things like that from within a web browser. You can also access OneNote from in there as well. So if you're trying to take notes on the go, maybe on your phone, then you can fire that up and you can use the web app. And just a few notes about the web app. It does come preloaded with Windows 10. So if you have a Windows 10 machine, it will be preloaded. If you don't have it, you can download it from the App Store for free, and this is available on your mobile device as well. So that's really nice to have a note-taking application on your mobile. As I said, it's touch friendly, it's great for handwriting, it's very light, very fast and very clean, and it's very simple and easy to use. And one of the bigger advantages with using the web app version is that it saves on battery life. It's not as draining. Now, the other option that we have is the OneNote desktop version, which is like the full fat version of OneNote. And that's what I'm going to be showing in the session today. And again, if you do have an Office 365 subscription, when you go into your portal on the Office website and you have that button to download and install all of your applications, OneNote will be one of those applications that it will install onto your PC. So as we said there, it says downloaded through Office 365. The full fat version has more ribbons and more functionality than the web app version. So there will be some things that you can't do in the web app version that you can do in the full desktop version. And I always say this is better if you're using a mouse or you're in the office, and it's much more powerful than the actual web app. And there's lots of utilities within the OneNote desktop version, which you don't have in the web app. So it has handwriting recognition. There's lots of integration with Outlook if you're an Outlook user. It has those advanced tagging features, the print to OneNote feature, and also audio recording. Now, I'm sure a lot of that won't mean anything to you at this moment in time, but hopefully at the end of the session, you'll be a little bit clearer about what we're talking about. So those are the main differences. As I said, we're going to be focusing on OneNote desktop in this session. So let me jump out of here. And I'm just going to jump across into OneNote. So I've opened it up. As I said, this is already installed on my PC. I downloaded it from the Office 365 portal. And this is what OneNote looks like when you open it up. So pretty boring at this stage because we haven't actually done anything just yet. It does have the same structure that you see running through all of the Microsoft applications. So we have our ribbon structure at the top with File, Home, Insert, Drawer, History, Review, and View. And as you would expect, you have lots of things on these tabs related to OneNote. And we're going to explore the majority of these in the session today. Now, as I said, you need to think of OneNote like a paper notebook. It has the same structure, and that's what we're going to jump into now, first of all. So what you need to do initially, if you want to get started with OneNote, is you need to create a notebook. Currently, I don't have any notebooks open, so we're going to go in and we're going to create one. And you can do that in a couple of different ways. The way that I find quickest and easiest is if we've got a click on where it says Quick Notes up here, you'll see that you have an option for Add Notebook. So I'm just going to click Add Notebook. And it takes me into that backstage area. Again, this will probably be reasonably familiar. It's the same kind of area that you get when you go into the backstage area in any of the other Microsoft applications. And it wants you to save the notebook first of all, and it's giving you different locations where you can save that notebook. So I'm going to save it into my personal folder. And I'm just going to give my notebook a name. Now, I'm going to be doing a notebook that is travel related as opposed to business related. So I'm just going to call it my travel notebook. And I'm sure you can see where we're going here. I'm going to click on the Create Notebook button. And it will pop up with a message and it says, your notebook has been created. Would you like to share it with other people? So at this first initial stage, OneNote's asking me, okay, is this notebook to be shared with others? So if you were creating, for example, a notebook at work and you wanted to share it with the rest of your team, you could invite people and it will ask you for their email addresses and then they'll all have access to that notebook. Now, it's not essential that you invite people at this stage. It might be that you want to create the notebook and then later down the track, share it with others, which you can definitely do. So don't feel that you have to, that this is sort of set in stone from here. I'm going to click Not Now because we're going to share it a bit later on. All right, so there we go. We have my travel notebook and you can see it's listed just here. What you'll also see is next to it is this little drop down arrow and it's now showing just here as my travel notebook. And if I hover over, I can see exactly where that notebook is saved. So OneDrive, Personal and Documents. I can create as many notebooks as I like. I can just keep going in and adding notebooks and they will all appear in this list. So I can toggle very easily between my different notebooks. So again, if you're somebody who wants to have a notebook for personal use, but also have one for work use, you could create two separate notebooks and separate out all of the content that way, and it just makes it very easy to toggle between them. Now, once you're in here, just be aware that you can right-click, as you would expect in Microsoft applications, and you get a menu related to that particular notebook. Now, most of these things are fairly self-explanatory. I can sync the notebook, I can share it, I can copy it. I'm going to go into Properties just to show you a couple of things in here. So if you decide that you want to change the name of your notebook, so maybe I just want to call it Travel Notebook and remove the my, I could do that if I wanted to. I can also choose to change the color. This is really just an aesthetic thing. And I could change the location. So if I want to save it in a different area, I can do that from the properties as well. Now I'm happy with where it's saved, so I'm just going to click on OK. Lovely. So now that I have my notebook, what I need to do is start adding sections and pages. Now, what you'll see here is just above at the top, we have new section 1. And the way I think about this, again, if you think back to a manual notebook or a paper notebook, I should say, imagine sections as if you've got dividers within that notebook. And then within those dividers, you have pages of notes. That is what these sections are at the top. So you can call these whatever you like. And if I right click, you'll see I get a rename option just there. So I'm going to click on rename. And I'm going to say this is travel for, let's say, June 2019. And I can click off. And I can add as many sections as I like just by clicking that plus. And I'm going to add July 2019, like so. And you can create as many as you like running across the top. So I'm going to stick with my 2 dividers at the moment. I'm going to go back to June. Now, I want you to cast your eyes all the way over to the right-hand side to this little pane that we have running down there. I'm just going to make that a little bit wider. And you can see that this is where we keep our pages. So remember, this is the divider, and then we create our pages in this page. So currently it says untitled page, and this is actually the page that I'm clicked on now. You can see the cursor flashing in the title area. So maybe I'm going to 4 different countries in June. Lucky me. So I'm going to title this page months. And you can see now, as soon as I type that title in, it actually renames the page over in that right-hand panel. I could add another page if I wanted to, just by clicking on Add Page. And I'm going to call this one Germany. We'll just do 2 more. Let's do Spain. And let's do Italy, my favorite. There we go. And I can carry on building up those names if I want to. Now, once you've got your pages down here, you can reorder them. So you can pick them up and you can move them around. You can see I'm just dragging, and if I let go, it drops that page. You can also make them sub-pages. So you'll see if I grab Italy and just pull it to the right-hand side, that makes it a sub-page of France. And I can just undo that by dragging it back as well. So getting the structure of your notebook correct before you kind of start to add content is really important. So it's worth having a little think about how you want it to be laid out. All right, let's jump back to France. And we're going to start to add some notes now into this notebook. Now, as I said, this kind of looks fairly similar to Word in a way. You have a page, you're ready to type your information. But one thing that does differ is that you can literally start typing anywhere on the page. You're not restricted to just starting in the left-hand column. So I could click over here, and you'll see my cursor's now in the middle. I can click over here and I can start typing like so. So it's really got more of that kind of scrapbook quality to it. And let's type something that's a little bit better than just rubbish. I'm gonna click just here and I'm going to type in some dates. So I'm going to France and I'm gonna say that I arrive at 9:25. Garden door. So this might be some notes for me. Now, once I've typed my first note, I could make that longer if I wanted to. You'll see it appears in this kind of little floating text box. And as I hover over the top, I can pick it up, I can drag it, and I can drop it wherever I want to. You'll see also I have a little, when you click on it, you have this little kind of flashing arrow next to it. If I click on that, it just highlights all of the text within that little text box. So I could then, once I've got it highlighted, go up to my home ribbon and I've got all my usual formatting tools available to me. So if I wanted to make it a bit bigger, I could do that. If I wanted to make it bold, I could do that as well. So I won't go through those because I'm sure we're all fairly familiar with how to do basic formatting. Now I'm just going to grab that and drag it over to here. And I'm just going to add another note underneath. So I'm going to say 10:30, arrive, hotel, Louvre, like so. Oops, made a little bit of a mistake there. I can carry on adding different notes. Really, really simple, really, really straightforward to do. Again, you can also resize these boxes, so I can just drag in and out as well. So nice and easy. All right, let's look at inserting something a bit different. So inserting something other than text. So maybe I want to have a map of where this hotel is located, or maybe I want to have a picture of the outside so I know what I'm looking for when I'm in my taxi. So I'm going to go onto the internet and I'm going to search for this on Google Maps, and I'll show you a couple of different ways that you can bring that really nicely into OneNote. So let's just open up a browser, and I'm just going to go to Google, and I'm going to go to Google Maps, and I'm going to search for hotel. This is where I find out I spelt it wrong. Hotel de Louvre. There we go. I think that's right. And there we go. So it's found it there in the middle. So maybe I want to bring this little map into OneNote. And as I said, there are a couple of different ways that I can do this. Now, one of the ways, and this isn't really my favorite way, but if you are using Google Chrome and you have got OneNote downloaded, you'll see up in the top right-hand corner, you have a little OneNote icon up here. So clip to OneNote. I hope you can see that in the top right-hand corner. It's not too small. And I can use this directly within my browser to clip information and import it into OneNote. And there is a reason why I don't like this as much, which will become clear in a moment. So let me just show you how this feature works. I'm going to click on it. So click on this little icon at the top. And what it does is it sort of scans the page, and currently it's showing me the full page. So if I was to select that, it's going to take a clipping of the entire page that I have on the screen, and it's not particularly displaying very well. What I want to do is I just want a region of the map. So I'm going to click on region, and it says drag and release to capture a screenshot. So now if you look at my cursor, I have a cross, and if I drag, and I'm just going to select that like so, which is essentially screen clipped that particular region. What it now says is that I can choose a location to add this screen clipping into. And if I click the drop down, I can see all of my different notebooks. So you can see the test one I was doing when I was preparing for this webinar yesterday. Now I want to put it into my travel notebook, and I want it to go into June 2019. And I'm going to select clip. And it clips it. And then what I could do is I could view in OneNote, which will open up OneNote in a browser. Now, I don't particularly want to do that. As I said, it will open it in the web app, which is what this is what the web app looks like. But if I just go back to my desktop version, we should see that that appears. There it is. So Hotel de Louvre, Google Maps. And if I click on it, it appears there. Now, the reason why I don't like this is because it doesn't allow you to specify a page that you want to send this to. So I didn't necessarily want this map on a completely new page. I wanted it on the France page. And that's one of the drawbacks of doing it that way. I could, of course, just click on this, copy it and paste it onto the correct page, but I sort of feel that's a bit of an unnecessary step, which Microsoft need to fix or deal with at some point, but it is definitely possible to do it that way. What you'll also notice is when the image comes in, it tells you where it was clipped from, and it provides a link back to the URL. Now, this can be very, very useful. Imagine if you're clipping things off of lots of different websites and putting them all together. It is sometimes very useful to have a link back to the page where that image came from. So that's a really, really useful little feature. If you're not really too bothered about that, which I'm not in this instance, I can just highlight it and delete it out, which again makes it look a little bit cleaner. And I could do a Control X and go to France, and I could do a Control V to paste it in if I wanted to. So now I have a nice little map showing me where my hotel is. Let me show you this in a slightly different way. You can also do the same thing, but from within OneNote. So again, if I go to Insert, you'll see here in the Images group, we have a screen clipping utility. So this is pretty much the same. So what I want to do now is I'm going to jump back to that web page, wherever it was, just here. I'm just going to click on this picture of the hotel. And I want to take a clipping of this hotel. So I'm going to go back to here and I'm going to select screen clipping. And essentially I get that same crosshair. I can then drag it over the area I want to clip. And this time it puts it directly in the page I was clicked on. So for me, I find that a little bit better just because I don't have to mess around copying and pasting. It doesn't bring the URL in, but it does say when the screen clipping was taken, which again can sometimes be useful in certain circumstances. And as usual, you can go in and you can, if I grab the right one, resize these images if you want to. So that's a couple of ways of clipping information and bringing it into your OneNote notebook. Really, really useful. All right, let's do something else. We're going to move on to tagging things. I think this is a really nice option in OneNote. Now I'm going to go underneath here and I'm just going to kind of continue on my itinerary for the day. So I'm just going to type in a couple of items here. We're going to say 12:30. We're going to go for lunch at Maison Rose. And then at, let's say, 1400, we're going to do a tour of the catacombs. Sounds exciting. Then we're going to do 1730 is going to be dinner, cruise down the River Seine. And we're going to end the evening in a very exciting way. At 8 o'clock, we're going to go to the Moulin Rouge and see a show. So I've added more items into my itinerary. Now, I've done this so that I can show you the tagging feature, because I think this is a really nice feature of OneNote. If we jump back up to the home ribbon at the top, you can see in the tags group, we have this little drop down. And there are lots of different tags that we can add to different items within our notebook. And all of these tags can be customized. You'll see at the bottom there is a customize tags option, and you can select any one of these and you can modify the tags. So you can completely rename these if you wanted to things that are more relevant to the kind of tags that you want. But there are default ones in there, and some of these are kind of useful. So things like to-do checkboxes. Now that's the one I'm going to add. I'm going to click at the beginning where it says Gare du Nord, and I'm going to click on this to-do item. You'll also notice, because this one is used fairly frequently, you also have it as a bigger icon in that same group. So if I click to-do, it gives me a little checkbox, which I can check, toggle on, toggle off. So this is a great way of creating task lists, to-do lists, all those kinds of things. So I'm just going to add, and I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to add to-do checkboxes to all of those items. So when I've done them, I can just select them and know that they've been done. There are lots of other tags that you can add, and we're going to add another one in just a moment. Now, before I show you how we can sort of utilize these tags and why they're so useful, I'm going to show you another way of inserting something into your notebook. I'm going to go up to the insert ribbon again, and you can see on here there are lots of different things that you can insert, and we did look at screen clipping. I'm not going to go through all of these. As I said, a lot of this functionality is fairly common to all of the Microsoft applications. So if you've inserted pictures in Word or PowerPoint, it's exactly the same in Microsoft OneNote. One thing I will show you though is file attachment. So I'm going to click on file attachment and wait for my PC to load up. There we go. And I'm going to attach my itinerary for France, which I just have here in a Word document, and I'm going to click Insert. Now it's asking me, do I want to attach the file or do I want to insert a printout? Now the difference between the two, if I attach the file, it's just going to show me the icon, so the word icon, which I can then double click to open that document. If I was to choose insert printout, it's basically going to put all of the document into my notebook. And again, sometimes that might be something that you want to do. It's particularly useful for things like PDFs. In this case, I'm just going to say attach file. Oh, where was I clicked? Let me see. There it is at the top. So I now have my France itinerary attached, and I can double click on that to open it up. Now that might be something that I want to tag as well. So maybe this is very important. So I want to go back to home, and I'm going to select my tags, and I'm going to select important. And you can see it's put a star next to my itinerary. Now you might be thinking, okay, well that's all well and good. Those are kind of fun things to use, but why are they useful? Well, I find them useful because if you go to this Find Tags option at the top, you'll see another pane opens up in the right-hand side. And I'm just going to change this search to, let's have a look, this notebook only. And now what I can do is I can tell OneNote to group all of my tags, and I have different ways that I can group them. Now I'm going to choose tag name, and what I see underneath is now it's showing me all the items that I've tagged as important, which is just one, and then all the items that I've tagged as to-dos, and we have all of those items there which have checkboxes next to them. So that's all well and good. It's great if you're trying to navigate or find things in relation to the different tags that you've used. But one thing I find really cool is that what you can do is you can create a summary page. So if you imagine this scenario, this is a very short notebook that we're using, but imagine that you've got a business notebook which has got loads and loads of meeting notes and various other things. If you go through and you tag different elements, so say in the meeting notes there have been some action points, if you tag those, you can then just pull out what the action points were from that huge amount of text, and that is where tags are really useful. So you'll see now, if I just want to have a list of all of my action items, all of my to-do items, what I can do is minimize this tag, so I'm just showing to-do, and do create summary page. And it will open up a new page. It's called it to-do, and I just have those items listed on here. So that's a really nice way of pulling out information that you've tagged into a separate page. I really like that feature. What do we think of that feature, guys? Give me some feedback in the chat. Anybody like that feature? I can see people mentioning Evernote. Someone's put, does it sync across devices? Yes, it does. Yes. So if you have it on your phone and if you have it on your PC, yes, it does sync. Wonderful. Michelle's put, brilliant, found a use for it. Yes, I think tagging is one of those things which you see it there and you think, I don't really know what that does. And when somebody explains it to you, it's like, oh, I can see a use for that. At least that's what I thought when I first saw it. Now, that's tagging. Now, I don't want these 2 pages at the bottom here, so I'm going to right click and I'm just going to delete out those 2 pages because I don't need them. And let's go back to France. All right, so let's go back to our insert ribbon and a couple of other things on here which you might find quite useful. Now, we have on here also a table button. So if you want to insert tables into your notebook, you can definitely do that. And actually, if I just jump back to the home ribbon and just move along this tags group, there is an integration with Microsoft Outlook. So if you are an Outlook user, and I'm not, I'm sad to say, the previous company I worked for was completely on Gmail, so I have become deconditioned to using Outlook. I know how to use it, but it's not set up on my PC, so I can't demonstrate this effectively to you, shall I say, but hopefully you'll get the idea when I explain it. What you have here is Outlook tasks. So again, this can be used to flag certain things within your document. So again, if I just click at the end here and maybe flag this as today, I get my little flag icon, and then I can use that to sort things. So again, I can use those flags and just pull out all of the flagged items. One thing it will also do, which is really cool, is because it is integrated with Outlook, if I was to flag any items in my notebook, it will add them into my task list in Outlook. So that's a really cool thing as well. You don't have to go into Outlook and add it again into your task list. You can just flag it here and it will synchronize and update. So that's a really cool little feature as well, if you are an Outlook user. Another one that I used to love when I did use Outlook was this option just here, meeting details. This is perfect if you use OneNote for taking meeting notes. And for me, that's probably one of the #1 ways to use Outlook. I love to use this for meeting notes because it's so easy just to create a new page for each meeting, type my notes, and I all have them stored away nicely. Now, what this will do, again, I can't demonstrate it to you fully because I don't have Outlook on this PC, but what it can do is if you do have meetings in your Outlook calendar, so say you had something scheduled for later on today, if you click meeting details, it will show all of the meetings that you have scheduled in this little pane down here. You can click on the meeting and it will insert into your document the details of that meeting. So the time, who's attending, and it gives you a space to start typing your notes. So it's a really nice way of heading up your meeting notes. You've got all the details of the meeting at the top, who the participants were, what the title of the meeting is, and then you're free to kind of start typing your notes. So that's another really nice piece of Outlook integration. So I would advise, if you do have Outlook, give that one a little experiment because that's quite a fun little thing. Wonderful. Let's go back to our insert ribbon and carry on moving across. Now, as I said, a lot of these are fairly self-explanatory. So screen clipping we've seen, pictures, online video, those are the same in all of the apps. One thing which you probably won't have come across, because I think this is only available in OneNote. I know they've added voice dictation in the latest version of Excel and Word and PowerPoint, I believe. But with regards to actually recording audio and video, I don't think we have the same functionality in those other apps. Again, this is something you might utilize or you might not. It's something I used to utilize quite a lot when I was learning to be, not learning to be a trainer, but when I was starting a new job and I was shadowing one of the trainers there, I used to like to make notes what she was training so I can build my own training courses. And quite often what I would do is I would listen to her speaking and I would record the audio. And that's what you can do with this button here, is you can literally record any audio you like. So let me give you a quick demonstration. If I click down here and click on record audio, and hopefully my PC can cope with this. Yeah, so you can see now it says audio recording started. And if you look at the ribbons now, I have an audio and video ribbon, and you can see the clock is ticking up. So it's recording what I'm saying currently. And I've got a pause, I've got a stop, I can rewind, so on and so forth once I've stopped recording. So it will carry on recording until I choose stop. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click stop. And I now have a little audio file which I can double click and play back at a later date. I will say the quality of this recording does sort of rely on how good your speakers are, how close you are to the source of the audio. So sometimes it doesn't pick up in the greatest format, but for a lot of things it is really good and it just enables you to get a quick video recording. I would advise you, please don't use this in things where you shouldn't be using it. So HR meetings, anything like that, probably not the best idea to record audio in those kinds of meetings, but can be useful at other points. Another one of the cool things about this that I like is the ability to be able to jump to different parts of your audio recording. So let me demonstrate this again. I'm just going to delete that out. And this time when I start recording my audio, and it might be the case that I'm recording a speaker at a conference, something along those lines. So I'm going to click record audio. And I might be taking notes as well. As I'm listening, I might be taking notes. So I might say something like, something very revelatory, like, I am taking notes here. What it does is it marks where in the audio recording you typed that note. So if I now press stop, you'll see if I hover over, you see I get a little play button just here, and I won't play it because we might possibly get some feedback problems with the webinar. But if I was to play this, it's going to play from where I started taking this note. So essentially your note taking will be related to the correct section of the audio. And I think that's actually a really cool little feature. I haven't seen that in other applications. Has anybody else seen that? I don't use Evernote or anything like that. Has anyone seen that kind of thing in another application before? No, I haven't either. No, everyone's saying no, no, nope. Yeah, I think it's quite cool. Again, it will depend on the kind of job that you do as to how useful that's going to be. So I'm just going to leave that in actually. So that's what the record audio does, and you have a similar button for record video. So again, I can record video and I can do the same thing. If I'm typing, it will jump to the spot in that video where I started typing, so it all marries up nicely. We have some other options in here, so we can do things like timestamp, the date, the time, and the date and time. Again, fairly straightforward. We also have some page templates that you can select. So if you want to do something a bit more exciting than just having a white background, you do have numerous different page templates. If I click on page templates at the bottom, and it will open up yet another side pane. And this is where we have all of the installed templates. And there's lots and lots of different ones that you can browse through. I will say some of them are very 90s looking. If I just show you one so you can have a little laugh like I did when I saw it. Let's have a look. That one's actually not too bad. I've seen worse. There have been worse. Yeah, see that one? It's kind of 90s looking. You know, I don't know if you'd want to use those. There are a couple of ones which aren't too bad. The formal meeting notes is actually fairly plain. So again, if you were using or if you were typing notes, this might be a good one to use. So you've got your agenda or your headings in there, just makes it a little bit quicker for you. So remember that you do have those templates in there as well. Also at the bottom here, if you want to save a page as a template, so if you go to great lengths to create a nice template, so again for a meeting notes or a meeting agenda, then you can save that current page as a template, and you'll see a link there at the bottom, so you can just reuse that over and over again. So page templates are kind of good. As I said, some of them slightly 90s. You'll see as I added both of those templates, it did create a new page for each one. So again, it will create new pages, which can sometimes be a bit of a pain. I'm just going to delete them out like so. Great. Let's move on. So we're going to jump across to the Draw tab. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that OneNote is particularly useful if you use a tablet with a stylus, because let's face it, that's sort of how you're going to be most accurate when you're drawing. I defy anybody who can draw anything to any degree of accuracy using a mouse, and I will demonstrate that now by trying to draw a triangle with my mouse. It's not too bad, but it's not great. But if you do have a stylus, it's going to be a little bit more useful for you. So it might be that you want to come back to here and maybe draw a circle around where your hotel is. Again, you can probably do that a lot neater than I can. And as I'm sure you've used in other applications, again, lots of different options, lots of different pens you can use. You can change the color and the thickness. And this is also where you can do things like insert shapes into your notebook if you want to. One other useful feature, and I did just see it very quickly scroll past in the chat panel, so I thought I would mention it, is this ink to text option up here. And somebody said, does it convert handwriting to text? Yes, it does. That's exactly what this button does. So again, if you're using a tablet device and maybe with a stylus, you've made some handwritten notes, what you can do is you can highlight those handwritten notes and then you can click ink to text, and OneNote will convert that to typed text with varying degrees of accuracy, depending on how messy your writing is, I'm sure. But yes, I have utilized it, and it's not actually too bad for most of the things that I've written down. It's actually converted it pretty well. So just remember that, yes, you do have a convert handwriting to text button up there. Other things that you have on this ribbon at the beginning here, You have a lasso select tool, which just allows you to select different elements of the page by drawing a shape around them. You have a panning hand, which just basically allows you to move things up and down and around, and also an eraser tool if you need to erase any annotations that you've made. So fairly standard stuff that we have on that particular ribbon. Let's jump across to history. Now, a couple of things I'm going to point out to you in here. This is quite useful. You have in here a drop down which allows you to kind of search for things by when they were last edited. So I could see everything that was edited today, and you can see here it opens up a pane. It shows me that I've added all of these pages. Or I can choose last 7 days, last 14 days. You can see I haven't done a great deal in this particular workbook. So that's just a useful way of being able to search. You can also find by author. Now, this is useful if you have multiple people accessing the notebook at one time. And I am going to share this notebook with other people in a moment. But if you do have maybe a team of people who all have access to this notebook and are all making changes on this notebook at various different stages, maybe you just want to highlight changes made by a specific author. So you can click Find by Author, and then it will allow you to select all the different authors. And again, I'm the only author currently, so that's why it's just showing me in there, but it would show everybody if you have shared this document and they've made changes. Another option that can be helpful, it's currently grayed out at the moment because this is the first version, but if you've made lots of changes over a number of days, weeks, months, when you click Page Versions, as I said, it's grayed out, it will show you all of those different versions. So if you need to roll back to a previous version, you can do that from within that button as well. And then of course you have a notebook recycle bin. So if you do delete your notebook, it will go into the notebook recycle bin from which you can restore it. And I think it's 30 days before it gets wiped off the system. Somebody might be able to correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I do believe it used to be 30 days. So you have that amount of time to retrieve your deleted notebooks. We then have a review tab, and again, fairly straightforward spelling, thesaurus stuff on there. The final one that I really want to concentrate on is this view ribbon just here. So again, things that you're probably fairly used to, being able to switch the view. So I'm currently in normal view. We also have a full page view, which gives you a lot more real estate on the screen. So again, this can get sort of quite messy sometimes if you've got lots of images that you're adding in. If you want a little bit more room, you can just use that full screen option. Dock to desktop, I don't tend to use that. It docks the entire notebook sort of over to the side of your desktop, which you might find useful. I don't particularly, but you can test that one out and see if it works for you. And then you can do some basic things like change the background of the page, and also you can add rule lines if you want to. Now for me, rule lines don't really make much sense, but again, if you're using a tablet device and you're writing, sometimes it's quite nice to have rule lines in there just to keep your writing straight. These rule lines always remind me of being at school. It reminds me of my old school workbook, so I tend to like to turn those off very quickly. Anything that reminds me of school is never a good thing. You can do things like change the paper size. You've got your zoom options just here and your new window, docked window options as well. So a lot of those that I've skimmed over are just things that are fairly common to all of the applications. So finally, what we have our file menu. And you can see there in the info pane, I have my travel notebook. And as I said, as you get more notebooks, they will build up. You can access all of the settings for your notebook. So you can do things like a manual sync if you want to, or go into the properties, or share and move it. You have all the normal options down here that you would expect to see. So print, again, you can print your notebooks. And as I said, you can share your notebooks. So if I go into share, I can choose to share with people or get a sharing link. These are the two which I would use most often. Now, people say to me, well, what is the difference between sharing with people and get a sharing link? And the way I think about it is this way. If I'm sharing with just a few people, so maybe I have a team of 5 and I want them all to be able to access this notebook. In general, I'll just do share with people and I'll type in their email addresses there and click share. If I'm emailing or if I want to share this notebook with a lot of people, so maybe I have a distribution list in Outlook, I would get a sharing link because that allows me to either create a view link or create an edit link. And I can then just take this and copy and paste it into an email in Outlook or in Gmail or anything else, and then share it with a specific distribution list. So that's how I kind of like to differentiate those two. Again, entirely up to you which one you use. You can export your notebooks as well, and you can see here you get a choice of exporting just the page, just the section, or the entire notebook. And you can pretty much export into most things. So you can export into Word, PDF, which is probably one of the most common ones if you want to send it to someone. So you have those options in there as well. Again, you have a send button just here, so you'll see that some of this kind of does double up a little bit. So you can email the page, you can send it as an attachment, send as PDF. You can even send it to a blog. If you have a blog connected, you can post it directly to a blog as well. So those are the main options that I wanted to run through with you. We've got about 10 minutes left. I know that was a fairly quick run through, but hopefully that's given you enough information to start experimenting with OneNote. Just finally, before I open it up for questions, I just want to highlight something to you, which is really important because this is a little bit odd with OneNote. At the beginning, when we created this travel notebook, we saved it into this location just here. And you can see it currently says status syncing. Now, if I go to Windows Explorer, and if I go to that particular location, so I think I put it in there, and there it is there. There's my travel notebook. Now, what will happen is if you want to delete this notebook, if you try to come in here, you'll see that there's no delete notebook option. You have a close this notebook, and if I close it, it will remove it from this list just here, but it's not deleted essentially, okay? That notebook is still sitting there over here. What you need to do is delete the notebook from here, so from the source, wherever you saved it. Otherwise, it's just going to remain there in the background. And over time, if you've done a lot of notebooks, those will build up and build up and build up. So if you don't need the notebook anymore, it is worth coming in here and deleting it out. All right, so that's a little bit unusual. Very odd that they don't have a delete notebook option. So guys, those were the main points. Hopefully that's given you a little bit more of an idea as to the kind of things that you can do within OneNote. Has anybody learned anything today? Give me a big yes if you have. Yes, good, lovely. Thank you, guys. All right, I'm going to open it up for questions. Let me jump across to the Q&A panel. Just bear with me, guys. Let's have a look. So starting from the top, Dawn has put, is there a maximum number of pages or sections? Ooh, that's a good question. You know what? I don't know if there is a maximum. I mean, I'm sure there is. I'm sure you couldn't create like 1 million, but I don't actually know. I mean, that might be a good one to quickly Google. I've created very, very large notebooks in the past without any issue. The only thing I would say is just be aware of the size of your notebook. Sometimes if you are creating lots of stuff and adding in lots of media, the file size can get really, really large. But I haven't found a limit yet, but if you want to know exactly, I would just give that one a quick Google. I can't tell you off the top of my head, I'm afraid. Let's have a look. Ulf has put, Deb, 2.5 questions. Oh, okay. Can you show how to create OneNote icon into Chrome? Number 2, in the insert section, is it possible to insert an MS Visio diagram? If you have special tags from your visit in France, is it possible to create a simple mind map chart with your tags? And sorry, I'm just reading through this. Or just a special page with special tags. Okay, so let me take your first question. So can you show how to create the OneNote icon in Chrome? That's actually, I think that's an extension which you need. So I would go onto the Chrome website and jump into and search for the extension. I'm not 100% sure. If you download OneNote from Office 365, I'm not sure if it automatically adds it in. I don't think it does. I think you might have to add the extension. So if you're using Chrome, give a little search to OneNote Clipper, and you should be able to add that into your Chrome. With regards to inserting a Microsoft Visio diagram, if you have special tags, okay, so with the tags, the only thing that you can create once you've tagged things is the summary at the bottom here, a summary page which will list out all of those tasks. So you can't sort of get it to jump into other applications or anything along those lines. You could definitely import a Visio diagram into a page. You could insert it. So if we go to insert in the files section, again, if you just wanted it as an icon, you could have it like that by doing file attachment. Or if you actually wanted the Visio diagram to display, which I think is what you're saying, if you do file printout, you could bring it in that way. Alternatively, you could clip it and bring it in as well. I'm not sure if I've answered your question there. I think so. Let's have a look. Someone's put, I have 2 Office 365 accounts, one for work and one for my own personal use. So do I. I just discovered that all this time I'm using my personal OneNote account at work. When I try to log out, I'm getting the following message. Okay, so if you've got, I have 2 accounts that I use as well. So I have my personal, which is linked to my Hotmail account, and I also have a work account as well. And I toggle very easily between the 2. If you're asked to sign out of one, it shouldn't require you to delete it or remove the account. Again, not 100% sure on that one. I have 2, and you can see here, if I go into File and Open, it's showing me all of my OneDrive locations. So here is my business one, and here is my personal one, and these are Office 365. So I have both linked to this same account. I'm not sure what I can tell you about that. Again, that might be one for Google about what's going to happen if you remove your account. Let's have a look. Can you use this recording function to record meetings or this training? Yes, you can use it to record anything you like. As I said, just be wary about, you don't want to start recording meetings if you're not supposed to be recording meetings. So if I'm recording something, if I'm sitting in on a seminar or a training session, what I normally do is I'll say to the trainer, do you mind if I record this? Most of the time they're fine with it, and then I'll record it. So you can record whatever you like, but it's worth mentioning it to people just so that everybody knows that that's what you're doing. You don't want to record anything that people didn't want recorded. Can you print this out in Word or PDF form and get all the tabs? I don't believe you can. It will just print the individual pages. So I guess you could do some kind of screen grab and print it that way, but I don't think you can. In fact, let's look at print preview. See what we've got. Yeah, it just prints the current page. Let's see, page group. No, it's not going to show you the tabs at the top, unfortunately. I don't think. No is the answer. Can you combine multiple workbooks together? Well, I'm just trying to think if you can do that. Any workbook you create, essentially you'll have access to it up here, so you can toggle very easily. There isn't a combine workbooks together button. You could copy and paste things. You could copy and paste pages. So if you right click, you do have copy and paste. You can also copy and paste sections as well. So if you do have another notebook with lots of with sections and pages within it, you can copy those sections and pages. Let's have a little look. I'll take a couple more. Can you create a single summary page of all tabs and pages? Not that I'm aware of. If you're sort of thinking of more like a sort of like a table of contents, I guess that would be. Not that I can think of. No, I don't. There isn't an option in OneNote to do that specific task. No. Let's have a look. Multiple versions of OneNote on desktop. Can you explain the differences between OneNote 2016 and OneNote, the Windows 10 app available from the Windows Store? Yeah, this is always so confusing, and Microsoft do this fairly frequently. They release an application and then there's about 3 or 4 different sort of versions of it that you can use. So we've got the one that you access through the portal, so through Office 365. And let me just show you what I mean by that, just to avoid confusion. If I go into my portal, and just wait for that to load up. Okay, so this is the Office 365 portal, and this is where I have access. We went through this in the session last week. This is where I have access to all my online versions of my applications, and one of them there is OneNote. So if I click on it, I can I can create a new notebook in here. So let me just do test, and this is all entirely online. So let's wait for that to load, and you'll see that it does look slightly different to the version that we've been using. Okay, so this is the online version. It's still basically the same, but a lot of the stuff is in a different place. So we add pages from down here. We've got our little menu options, so on and so forth. So the online version does look different. And as I said, the online version has less functionality than the full fat desktop version. So that's the online version. The one that I've been using is the full fat desktop version. And if you're wondering, how do I get hold of that? Again, if we go back to Office 365, oops, let's just click the back browser. When you have an Office 365 subscription, you have the option not only to have access to your online applications, but also to install them all onto your desktop. So again, if I was to select Install 365 apps, which is what I've done, it downloads all the full fat desktop versions of all of these applications. And one of them is OneNote, and that's what I'm using just here. So that's how you access that. There is also the app which you can download from the App Store, and I'm an iPhone user, so I don't know about the Android side of things, but there is a OneNote app that you can download for your phone. Again, that's really useful for notes on the go, and again, that looks slightly different as well. So lots of different versions for OneNote, depending on how you're accessing them, and I completely agree, confusing. All right, guys, I think that's about time now. We've just gone over 5:30. Thank you so much for your questions. I am aware I didn't get to all of them, but I don't want this to overrun too much. I hope you enjoyed the session today. Did you all get something out of it? Just want to give me a thumbs up in the chat panel. Yes, wonderful. Who's going to start using OneNote now they've seen this? Or are they going to stick with Evernote? Wonderful. Yeah, it is a nice little app once you get used to it and you start using it, and particularly if you use other Microsoft applications like Outlook, the integration there is really, really good. So yeah, I would encourage you to kind of get on with using it. I will leave it there. Thank you so much, guys, for attending today. We will send this video out to you within the next 2 days. So Friday, you should receive a link to this video, which we upload onto YouTube. And I will speak to you guys next week. And I'm very happy that my internet connection has worked. Wonderful. Thank you, guys. Have a lovely evening, and I'll speak to you next time.